Chief Medical Officer Sarah Chen stared at the pulsing crystalline mass on her operating table, its normally brilliant azure light now flickering dangerously. The being, classified as a luminary, lay dying, its ancient energy patterns destabilizing with each passing second. Every medical protocol explicitly forbade intervention with luminary physiology. Their biology was too alien, too complex, and too dangerous to meddle with. But Sarah hadn't spent 15 years as a combat medic to watch someone die because of bureaucratic fear. Officer Chen, step away from the subject, Commander Reynolds' voice crackled through the medbay's comm system. That's an order. Sarah's fingers danced across her holographic interface, reconfiguring the quantum stabilizers she'd modified against regulation. With all due respect, Commander, you can court-martial me later. The luminary's crystal structure was already showing signs of fracture, microscopic cracks spreading like a web across its surface. According to the xenobiology briefings, this species had evolved in the coronas of dying stars, their crystalline bodies storing and processing stellar energy in ways that defied conventional physics. This is your final warning, Chen. The diplomatic corps has explicitly classified all luminaries as non-intervention entities. We don't understand their life cycle, what you're seeing could be natural. Sarah's hands moved with practiced precision as she calibrated her jerry-rigged equipment. What I'm seeing is a sapient being in cardiac arrest, or whatever passes for it in their physiology. Their energy signature matches human brainwave patterns during extreme distress. The medbay's doors hissed as security teams assembled outside. Sarah had maybe 3 minutes before they breached the quarantine protocols she'd engaged. If you do this, you're risking an interstellar incident, Reynolds warned. The Luminary Collective has maintained isolation for 10,000 years. Any interference could. Could what? Sarah snapped, adjusting the final settings. Lead to them actually talking to us? Sharing their knowledge? Living instead of dying alone in the void? The crystalline being's light dimmed further, its complex internal structures beginning to collapse. Sarah took a deep breath and activated her modified quantum stabilizer. Streams of carefully modulated energy began flowing into the luminary's matrix. For 3 terrifying seconds, nothing happened. Then the being's light flared blindingly bright, forcing Sarah to shield her eyes. When she could see again, the cracks in its structure were healing, sealed by lines of golden energy. The medbay doors exploded inward as security forces breached the room. Sarah raised her hands slowly, still watching her patient. The luminary's light had stabilized into a steady, healthy glow. Chief Medical Officer Sarah Chen, you are hereby relieved of duty and placed under arrest for violation of diplomatic protocols, unauthorized medical procedures on a protected species, and, the security chief's litany of charges cut off as a harmonic tone filled the room. The luminary was singing. The sound bypassed their ears entirely, resonating directly in their minds. It carried images of stellar nurseries, of vast crystal cities orbiting dying suns, of knowledge accumulated over eons of watching the universe unfold. Thank you, healer, a voice echoed in Sarah's thoughts. It has been so long since any dared to help. Before anyone could respond, the luminary's song shifted, broadcasting on all frequencies. Similar harmonies answered from across the sector as more of its kind awakened from their self-imposed isolation. The security chief's comm unit crackled. All units, be advised, we're detecting massive energy signatures. Luminary vessels are decloaking throughout the system. Sarah smiled slightly as she allowed herself to be handcuffed. Well, Commander Reynolds, looks like you'll get your diplomatic incident after all. A new song filled the air, thousands of luminary voices joined in chorus, sharing their joy at the end of their long solitude. The barrier between species that had stood for millennia had been broken not by politics or force, but by a simple act of compassion. For the record, Sarah said as they led her away, I'd do it again. The luminary's light pulsed in response, and in its crystalline depths, something new began to stir, hope for a future where two very different species might learn to understand each other, all because one human refused to let ancient fear stand in the way of saving a life. Security escorted Sarah from the medbay, but the luminary's song followed her, its harmony spreading across space to tell its kind of the human who had dared to care. In the hours to come, the galaxy would change, not with violence or proclamations, but with a simple choice to help someone in need. And somewhere in the vast darkness between the stars, other luminaries began to wonder if perhaps it was time to share their light with the universe once more. The holding cell's force field cast a soft blue glow across Sarah Chen's face as she sat on the narrow bunk, watching the stars through her cell's small viewport. 3 days had passed since she'd saved the luminary, and the bureaucratic machinery of the United Earth Fleet was still grinding away, trying to decide what to do with her. The resonant hum of luminary songs still echoed through the station's hull. Their vessels, massive crystalline structures that resembled abstract sculptures more than ships, had taken up position around the medical station, their presence causing equal parts wonder and panic among the human crew. The force field flickered and dissolved. Admiral Katsumi Yamato stepped into the cell, her weathered face unreadable. "Officer Chen, you've caused quite the diplomatic situation." Sarah stood, but didn't salute. "How's my patient?" "The luminary?" "Recovering well. And talking." Apparently, they'd been watching us for centuries, waiting for a sign that humanity was ready for contact. Yamamoto's lips twitched. They didn't expect that sign to come in the form of a rebellious medical officer with a modified quantum stabilizer. "With respect, Admiral, I was doing my job. The Hippocratic Oath doesn't have a species clause." "No, but the diplomatic corps has very specific protocols about non-intervention with advanced species." Yamamoto sat on the bunk, gesturing for Sarah to join her. "Did you know the luminaries are one of the oldest species in the galaxy? They've watched civilizations rise and fall, collected knowledge that spans billions of years." Sarah's heart raced. Then why isolate themselves? Why not share that knowledge? Fear. A new voice resonated in their minds. The luminary Sarah had saved appeared outside the cell, its crystalline form hovering serenely. Fear of what younger species might do with our knowledge. Fear of change. Fear of loss. The being's light pulsed gently as it continued. "We watched as civilizations destroyed themselves with knowledge they weren't ready for. We retreated, becoming observers only. But in doing so, we forgot something crucial." "What was that?" Sarah asked. "That wisdom comes not from knowledge alone, but from how it is used. Your actions, Healer Chen, showed us something we had forgotten, that compassion must balance caution." Admiral Yamamoto stood, her expression troubled. "The Luminary Collective has made an unusual request. They want you, Officer Chen, to serve as their liaison to humanity." Sarah blinked. "Me? But I'm under arrest." "Those charges have been dropped," the Admiral said dryly. "It's hard to maintain a diplomatic incident when the supposedly wronged party is singing your praises across 5 sectors." The luminary's light shifted to a warm gold. "We have watched humanity struggle, grow, learn. You face the same challenges we once did, balancing progress with wisdom, power with responsibility. We believe it is time to share our knowledge, but carefully, with guidance." "And you want me to help with that?" Sarah asked. "You acted to save a life, knowing it might end your career. You showed both skill and compassion. These are the qualities we seek." The luminary's form sparkled. "There is much we can teach humanity, and perhaps much we can learn in return." Admiral Yamamoto handed Sarah a data pad. "The diplomatic corps is establishing a new division, the Luminary Exchange Initiative. You'll be its first director, assuming you accept." Sarah scrolled through the details, her mind racing. "This is bigger than just medical knowledge, isn't it?" "Much bigger," the luminary confirmed. "We have seen the threads of time, the patterns of civilization. A great challenge approaches, one that will require all species to stand together. We can help prepare humanity, but only if there are those willing to bridge the gap between our kinds. Through the viewport, Sarah watched as more luminary ships arrived, their crystalline forms refracting starlight in complex patterns. Each one carried millennia of knowledge, secrets that could transform human understanding of the universe. What about the other species? Sarah asked. The ones you've been watching? Some are ready for contact. Others need more time. But humanity. The luminary's light pulsed with what might have been amusement. Humanity has a unique quality, the ability to face the impossible and refuse to accept it. We believe this quality will be essential in the times to come. Admiral Yamato cleared her throat. The position is yours if you want it, Chen. But I warn you, this won't be easy. Every government, corporation, and research institution will be fighting for access to luminary knowledge. You'll need to balance human ambition with their wisdom. Sarah stood, squaring her shoulders. When I took my oath as a medical officer, I swore to help those in need and do no harm. If I can help humanity navigate this relationship, prevent knowledge from being misused while ensuring it benefits those who need it most. She smiled. Well, that's just an extension of my original duty. The luminary's light brightened. Then let us begin. There is much to discuss, and time grows short. As Sarah followed the Admiral and the luminary out of the cell, she felt the weight of history settling around her. One simple choice, to save a life despite the rules, had opened a door that had been closed for millennia. Now she had to ensure that door led to humanity's advancement, not its destruction. The stars seemed brighter through the station's windows, and in their light, Sarah saw the promise of a future where humanity and luminaries would face the coming darkness together. The Luminary Exchange Center hummed with activity as Sarah Chen studied the holographic display before her. 6 months had passed since first contact, and the changes across human space had been staggering. Crystalline spires now rose from research stations, their surfaces alive with flowing data as luminary knowledge merged with human technology. Director Chen. The voice of her luminary partner, whom she'd named Aurora for simplicity's sake, resonated in her mind. We're detecting unusual energy signatures from the Carina Nebula. Sarah zoomed in on the region, where dozens of new points of light had appeared. More luminaries awakening? Yes, but their patterns are different. Aurora's crystalline form pulsed with concern. They're awakening too quickly, too violently. Something is forcing them out of dormancy. Before Sarah could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. The holographic display exploded with new data points as hundreds, then thousands, of luminary signatures burst into activity across the galaxy. This is wrong, Aurora's mental voice trembled. The awakening should be gradual, controlled. These readings suggest panic, fear. The station shuddered as a massive surge of energy washed over it. The holographic display flickered, then stabilized to show a terrifying sight, a wave of darkness moving through space, consuming light itself. By the stars, Sarah whispered. What is that? The threat we feared. Aurora's light dimmed. The Void Hunters. They feed on energy, on light, on life itself. We faced them once, eons ago, and barely survived. Our retreat into dormancy wasn't just from fear of sharing knowledge, it was to hide from them. Emergency channels exploded with reports as the wave of darkness approached populated systems. Sarah's command center became a chaos of flashing alerts and urgent communications. Admiral Yamato for you, Director, her AI assistant announced. The Admiral's hologram appeared, her face grave. Chen, please tell me you're seeing this. We are, Sarah confirmed, watching as more luminaries emerged from dormancy. The Void Hunters, they're forcing the luminaries to wake up. Hunting them. It's not just the luminaries they're after, Aurora interjected, its voice reaching both humans. All energy-based life is their prey. Your fusion reactors, your shield generators, your FTL drives, they will draw the hunters to your worlds. Sarah's mind raced. That's why you've been teaching us about crystal technology. It's more resistant to their feeding? Yes. But we never had time to complete the transition. Aurora's form rippled with distress. The hunters weren't supposed to return for centuries. Something has awakened them early. Admiral Yamamoto's hologram flickered. How long do we have? At their current speed? Sarah checked the calculations. 2 weeks before they reached the outer colonies. Maybe a month before they hit Earth. Can we fight them? Aurora's light pulsed. Not directly. They exist partially outside normal spacetime. Conventional weapons pass through them. But... The luminary hesitated. But what? Sarah pressed. There is a defense. A network we built during the last invasion, powered by the combined energy of thousands of luminaries. It created a barrier of crystalline light that the hunters couldn't breach. But maintaining it nearly destroyed us, that's why so many went into dormancy. Yamamoto's expression hardened. Could we rebuild it? The knowledge exists in our archives, Aurora said. But it would require perfect synchronization between luminaries and advanced technology. No single species could manage it alone. Sarah looked at the display, watching as the wave of darkness consumed another star system. Then she smiled, the same determined smile she'd worn when saving Aurora 6 months ago. Good thing we're not alone anymore. She turned to Yamamoto. Admiral, I need every engineer, physicist, and energy specialist you can find. And Aurora? She faced her crystalline friend. Get me everything you have on that barrier network. We've got a month to do what your people spent years preparing for. The chances of success, Aurora began, are better than the chances of survival if we do nothing, Sarah cut in. You said humanity's greatest strength is facing the impossible and refusing to accept it? Well, this is impossible. Let's prove you right. The darkness continued its advance across space, but now lights began appearing in its path, not just luminaries emerging from dormancy, but human ships and stations, their hulls already being retrofitted with crystalline technology. In research centers across human space, scientists and luminaries work together, racing against time to rebuild an ancient defense. Sarah watched as the first test of a human luminary energy matrix lit up the station's laboratory, its light somehow deeper and more real than anything human technology had achieved alone. It wasn't perfect, it would need to be 1,000 times stronger to face the Void Hunters, but it was a start. You know, she said to Aurora as they observed the test, when I broke protocol to save you, I thought the worst consequence would be losing my medical license. I didn't expect to end up helping organize the defense of the galaxy. Aurora's light shimmered with what might have been laughter. The universe, it seems, has a sense of irony. But perhaps this was always meant to be, not just our awakening, but the forging of an alliance that neither of our species could have achieved alone. The station speakers crackled with updates as more ships arrived, more luminaries emerged, and more pieces of the ancient barrier network were reconstructed. They had a month to prepare for an enemy that had nearly destroyed one of the galaxy's most advanced species. Sarah checked the latest reports, then straightened her uniform. Well then, she said, let's get to work. We've got a galaxy to save. 3 weeks into the crisis, the Luminary Exchange Center had transformed into humanity's last line of defense. The once pristine research facility now bristled with crystalline arrays, their surfaces swimming with rivers of light as human and luminary engineers worked to perfect the barrier technology. Sarah stood at the heart of it all, surrounded by holographic displays showing the Void Hunters' inexorable advance. They'd already consumed 3 outer colony systems, leaving nothing but cold, dark husks where vibrant worlds once shone. Status report, she called out, her voice carrying across the command center. Dr. Maya Patel, their lead physicist, looked up from her station. The crystal matrices are holding at 87% synchronization. Better than yesterday, but still not enough. We need 99% minimum, Aurora added, its crystalline form pulsing with focused energy. Anything less and the barrier will shatter when the hunters hit it. Sarah watched as another simulation failed, the virtual barrier collapsing under the Void Hunters' assault. They'd run thousands of tests, each one getting closer but never quite reaching the necessary strength. Time was running out. What are we missing? She muttered, studying the data streams. There has to be something. The station's alert system suddenly blared to life. Priority transmission from Deep Space Array 7, the AI announced. The main display shifted to show a haunting sight, a massive wall of darkness moving through space, consuming everything in its path. Stars winked out as it passed, their light and energy devoured by the cosmic predators. They've accelerated, Aurora said, its voice tight with concern. The outer defense line will be hit in 6 hours, not 12 as predicted. Sarah's mind raced. 6 hours. They needed more time, more power, more. She froze, staring at the latest failed simulation. Wait. Look at the energy pattern just before the barrier fails. See how it spikes? Dr. Patel leaned in, her eyes widening. The crystal matrices are trying to synchronize, but they can't maintain the connection. It's like an orchestra without a conductor, Sarah finished. She turned to Aurora. You said the original barrier network was powered by thousands of luminaries working in perfect harmony. How did they achieve that? Aurora's light flickered thoughtfully. We had centuries to learn each other's resonance patterns, to synchronize our energy signatures naturally. But now, we don't have centuries, Sarah cut in. But what if we could create an artificial synchronization point? Something to align both human technology and luminary energy? Dr. Patel was already running calculations. Theoretically possible, but we'd need an interface that could handle both types of energy without burning out. Nothing we have is stable enough. Sarah touched the medical insignia on her uniform, remembering the modified quantum stabilizer she'd used to save Aurora 6 months ago. What about something that's already proven it can interface with both? Aurora's form brightened with understanding. The medical quantum stabilizer. But you'd need hundreds of them, reconfigured to handle much higher energy levels. Every medical bay in the fleet has one, Sarah said, already sending out the call. And every engineer who's been working with luminary tech knows how to modify them. She smiled grimly. Welcome to the largest emergency medicine operation in human history. The next 6 hours became a blur of organized chaos. Ships arrived from across human space, delivering quantum stabilizers by the dozens. Engineers worked alongside luminaries, modifying the devices and integrating them into the barrier network. Each successful integration brought their synchronization rate higher, 90%, 93%, 95%. With 1 hour remaining, Sarah stood in the center of the command hub, surrounded by the combined efforts of 2 species fighting for survival. The modified stabilizers hummed with power, their familiar medical interface now part of something far greater. Synchronization at 98.2%, Dr. Patel announced. Almost there, but... The station shuddered as the first wave of Void Hunters hit the outer defense line. On the main display, they watched as automated outposts winked out one by one. We're out of time, Sarah said. She opened a channel to all stations. This is Director Chen. All barrier nodes, prepare for emergency activation. We go with what we have. Aurora moved closer, its crystalline form resonating with determination. Sarah, at this synchronization level, the barrier may not hold. The strain on the network will be massive, I know. Sarah's hands flew over the control interface. But we've got one advantage your people didn't have last time. What's that? Sarah gestured at the hundreds of humans and luminaries working together across the station. We're not fighting alone anymore. The Void Hunters appeared on their long-range sensors, a writhing mass of darkness that defied description. Sarah took a deep breath and placed her hand on the main control crystal. All nodes, stand by. Luminaries, prepare for energy transfer. This is it, people. Everything we've got, everything we are, it all goes into this moment. The darkness approached, hungry and ancient and unstoppable. Sarah's voice rang out clear and firm, barrier network, activate. Around the station, across space itself, thousands of crystalline arrays blazed to life. Human technology and luminary power flowed through the modified medical stabilizers, merging into something entirely new. A wall of pure light erupted between the darkness and the worlds it hungered for. And in that moment, as two species stood together against the void, the impossible became possible. The barrier held. The barrier of light held against the darkness, but Sarah Chen could see the strain in every readout. The modified quantum stabilizers glowed white-hot as they channeled unprecedented levels of energy, bridging the gap between human technology and luminary power. Status report, she called out, her voice steady despite the tremors running through the station. Barrier integrity at 94% and holding, Dr. Patel responded, her fingers dancing across multiple holographic interfaces. But the Void Hunters are adapting. On the main display, the wall of darkness pressed against their defenses, probing for weaknesses. Where the barrier's light touched them, the hunters seemed to split and reform, learning from each interaction. Aurora's crystalline form pulsed with concern. They're more intelligent than before. Last time, they were pure instinct. Now they show strategy. The station shuddered as a particularly powerful assault hit the barrier. Warning lights flashed across multiple sectors. Barrier integrity dropping. Dr. Patel shouted. 89%. 85%, they're concentrating their attacks on the junction points. Sarah watched as the Void Hunters gathered into massive formations, striking the barrier's weakest points with coordinated precision. They're not just adapting, she realized. They're evolving. Every attack teaches them more about our defenses. A new alarm blared through the command center. Energy spike detected, the AI announced. Massive quantum fluctuation approaching from Sector 7. The main display shifted to show a sight that made Sarah's blood run cold. The darkness was coalescing, thousands of individual hunters merging into something vast and terrible, a singularity of pure hunger that bent light itself around its form. They've never done this before, Aurora whispered, its mental voice tinged with awe and fear. They're combining their power, becoming something new. The merged entity struck the barrier with devastating force. Crystalline arrays shattered across 3 sectors, their light snuffed out in an instant. The quantum stabilizers screamed as they tried to compensate, their medical protocols pushed far beyond their design limits. Barrier failing. Dr. Patel's voice was desperate. We can't handle this level of attack. Sarah stood amidst the chaos, watching as everything they'd built began to crumble. Then she noticed something strange in the energy readings, a pattern in the way the merged hunters moved. Aurora, she called out, when we synchronized the barrier network, we used medical quantum stabilizers because they could interface with both forms of energy. What if we reversed the process? The luminary's light flickered with understanding. Use the barrier itself as an interface? That's theoretically possible, but the energy requirements would be massive, Sarah finished. But look at what the hunters have done. They've merged their energy into a single point, making themselves vulnerable to a concentrated counterattack. Dr. Patel caught on immediately. If we could invert the barrier's frequency, use their own energy against them, we'd need perfect synchronization, Aurora warned. Every node firing at exactly the same moment, every luminary and human working in absolute harmony. Sarah opened a channel to all stations. This is Director Chen. I need every luminary and every human operator to listen carefully. We have one chance to end this. She quickly outlined the plan, watching as understanding spread across both species. It was dangerous, unprecedented, and their only hope. Synchronization protocols initiating, Dr. Patel announced. All stations reporting ready. Sarah placed her hand on the main control crystal, feeling the combined energy of two civilizations flowing through the network. Remember why we're here, she said to everyone listening. 6 months ago, I broke protocol to save one life. Today, we're all breaking the rules of what's possible to save everything. The merged Void Hunter entity gathered itself for a final assault, its darkness deeper than the space between galaxies. Now! Sarah commanded. Across space, humans and luminaries acted as one. The barrier's energy inverted, turning from a wall into a spear of pure light. It struck the merged hunters at the exact moment they attacked, using their own momentum against them. For a moment that felt like eternity, two fundamental forces of the universe met in perfect opposition. Then the laws of physics reasserted themselves in a spectacular fashion. The Void Hunters' combined form collapsed in on itself, their darkness consumed by the very energy they had tried to devour. The chain reaction spread through their ranks, each hunter connected to the others through their attempted evolution becoming a point of cascading failure. When the light faded, the sensors showed only empty space where the hunters had been. The remaining individual hunters, cut off from their evolved form, fled into the depths of space, their threat diminished but not forgotten. In the aftermath, as damage reports flooded in and celebration erupted across human space, Sarah found herself standing with Aurora in the station's observation dome. You know, she said, watching the stars shine more brightly than ever, when I became a doctor, I took an oath to, first, do no harm. I never imagined that would lead to helping destroy an ancient cosmic horror. Aurora's light rippled with amusement. Perhaps the oath needs updating. First, do no harm, unless facing spacetime devouring entities. Sarah laughed, then grew serious. Will they return? Eventually, Aurora admitted. But next time, we'll be ready. The barrier network can be improved, expanded. And more importantly, the luminaries' form brightened. Next time, we face them together from the start. Across human space, crystalline spires continued to rise alongside traditional architecture, their light a testament to the union of two species. The medical quantum stabilizers returned to their original purpose, but now bore modifications that bridged not just energy patterns but civilizations. And in the stars above, luminaries and humans worked side by side, building a future neither species could have achieved alone, all because one person chose to save a life, protocol be damned. Sarah smiled at the sight. Together, she agreed. That's how we'll face whatever comes next. The stars shone on, bearing witness to the dawn of a new age, one where the light of cooperation and understanding would always push back the darkness.